Alrighty, so today we are going to be graphing from a equation. So no longer are we dealing with ordered pairs or any of that stuff when we're graphing. We are graphing directly from the equations themselves. So you guys are going to look at this and be like, what? This doesn't make sense. But trust me, it is very, very easy. This is really one of the more easy things that you will look back at your math days and be like, oh yeah, that was easy. That made sense. But right now it's new. And again, when we learn something new, it's going to be a struggle. Okay? But that just means you are learning something new. So don't freak out. Don't give up. Stay with it. This is actually pretty simple. So again, when we look at these linear equations, they're in our slope-intercept form, right? And that number with slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The number that's adding or subtracting is your y-intercept. It's where your line is crossing the y-axis, and the number that's multiplying is with the x is your slope. That's the rate in which your line is going up or down. Okay? So if we were to look at number 1, that means 2/3 is our slope. And again, slope is what we would always talk about as rise over run. Top number is what we're doing up and down. Bottom number is what we're doing left and right. The number that's adding or subtracting is your y-intercept here. So 2 would be our y-intercept. That's where our line is crossing the y-axis. So if it's crossing at +2, that means it's crossing right here. And since we know what that point is just from looking at the equation, that is always where we start. We think of that y-intercept as our bullseye. That is our starting point right there. We always start with our y-intercept. And then from there, we just kind of plot out our slope. So our slope is +2/3. So that since it's +2, that's going up 2. +3, that's going right 3. Up 2, right 3. Okay? But what if I wanted to go backwards? Well, if I look at this, so again, just kind of draw the line. If I wanted to go backwards, I went up 2, right 3 to get here. That means I could go down 2, left 3. Just kind of inverting the signs on that fraction. And that's still on my line, right? Down 2, left 3. If I went down 2, left 3 again, hey, look. That looks like it's still on my line. Down 2, left 3 again, hey, look. That looks like it's still on my line. So again, and if you think about that, since it is +2/3, if you wrote that as -2/-3, wouldn't those negatives cancel each other out and still be positive? Yeah. So even if you're going down 2, left 3, that's still technically a positive fraction because those negatives would cancel out. That's just basically the inverse of the positive. Okay? Now let's look at another example. So let's look over here at 2. So here our y-intercept is -5. So again, that's where I start. I start right there at -5 on the y-axis. Right off the bat, I know that's where I need to start. Now it's a -2x. So again, our fraction or our slopes are always written as fractions, right? So if I wanted to write -2 as a fraction, a whole number would just be over 1. Okay? So it's a -2 over a +1, because again, if they were both negative, that would change it to become a positive slope, right? But since it's at a negative number, I need that to be a different sign. So negative fractions or negative slopes, only one number can be negative. So I could write that as -2/1, or I could write that as 2 over a -1. But if they were both negative, it would become positive. And that's going to make sense, again, when we talk about how we graph this. So since our rise is -2 and our run is +1, that means I'd go down to right 1, right? But that is off my graph. So I've got to go backwards. So if I go backwards from where I am right now, that would mean I would actually go up 2 and then left 1, right? That's still on my line. So I'm going to go backwards again from here. I'm going to go up 2, left 1. Hey, look, that is going down from left to right, so that works. That is a negative slope. Up to left 1, up to left 1, up to left 1, up to left 1. And there is my line all graphed. Okay? And again, make sure if it is a negative slope, it should be going down from left to right. Negatives go down, positives go up. Okay, let's look at another example. So let's look at this one right here, y equals 3 over 2x plus 5. So again, 5 would be my y-intercept, right? That's my starting point. I always start at my y-intercept. So right there at 5 on the y-axis. And then my slope is positive 3 over 2. So up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 2. That is off my graph. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to go backwards on this one, just like I did on the last one. So instead of going up 3, right 2, that means I'm going to go down 3, left 2. Basically the opposite direction of what I did the first time. So again, down 3, left 2, down 3, left 2, down 3, left 2. And there's my line right there. Not too tough, right? Once you figure out you can go backwards, it makes these a lot easier. Now this is one that a lot of students get hung up on. Y equals x minus 1. So let's ignore the x part and let's just focus on the y-intercept first. Y-intercept would be the minus 1, right? So I would start at a negative 1. Now this is where students get lost. There's no number in front of the x, so I see a lot of like horizontal lines here because they think it's a zero slope. Or they just put a dot there and don't have a slope, like stuff like that. But this x isn't necessarily all by itself, is it? Whenever we have a variable all by itself, what invisible number do we put in front of it? We always think of it as having a 1 in front of it, right? This is actually a slope of 1, and 1 as a fraction is 1 over 1. So if you ever see y equals x, that does have a slope. It's just a slope of 1 over 1. That's going up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. Or down 1, left 1. Okay? Basically just hitting every intersection on the grid. And your line would just be a very basic diagonal line like that. Okay? Not too tough, right? So you guys practice a little bit of that, and if you have questions, ask your teacher.